KTN News and tweet me directly at Michelle Ngele. For now, however, we'd like to engage retired General Daniel Opande, who joins us live exclusively on Worldview to discuss the cost of electoral violence, really learning from the 2007 post-election violence in Kenya. General Opande, many thanks for joining us in studio.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
All right. It's great to have a very renowned peacemaker to talk about matters of electoral violence and the cost of it in the country. Let's just begin from Rwanda. Eugene Anangwe there, a very incisive report of the lessons left behind the reconciliation process that was employed in Rwanda. Let's begin there with regard to the lessons that Kenya can employ.
Well, as we have seen from what Eugene has brought to us, it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of hard work for people to reconcile. First of all, to understand, the lessons that they can gauge out of violence, whether it is electoral violence or it's just neighbor disagreeing with neighbor.
Right.
In the violence, the sort of violence that we saw ourselves in the year 2007, it was an electoral violence. And we don't have to look back and begin to say what happened, because we were all there, or most of us were there. And most of us experienced, some sort of violence, whether it was meted against them, against their people, the so-called people, or neighbors. And that is what I think Kenyans, needed, to put into their minds. And it is now 10 years since that happened.
Right. I mean, and as you rightly put it, it takes a long time to heal from a war like the one Rwanda suffered, like the one Kenya suffered in 2007. But you've also been around the world and around the continent on several peacekeeping missions that you have led yourself. What are the fundamental, really the lying fundamental principles that we first need to establish before we begin the journey of reconciliation?
The first thing we must do is to really identify the causes of the violence, that particular violence, whether it is electoral violence, whether it is, tribal violence, whether it is a civil war. We have to understand why, and then address the issues behind why it happened. And then the next thing is, who committed violence?
Right.
People need not get, away with murder without being brought to book. And people must be prepared to say, whether it is me or Pande who has killed so-and-so or caused violence to so-and-so, my background as a general should not let me go scot-free. In other words, there has to be a system whereby the people, understand that nobody is
above the law, pretty much, so to speak.
Is above the law, and the law is being meted equally to all of us, whether you are a small person or an important person.
Right.
That's one. The second thing is communities must, agree that at least, something has been done, even if it has not been done conclusively, but they must agree to begin to heal, work together, and then say enough is enough, or we've left that behind
And I think
us.
that is the headache that comes in there. What brings these communities together in that agreement? Getting them to agree, especially in Kenya, has been the bigger problem.
Exactly. For whatever reason, Kenyans seem, to expound or believe that we are all Kenyans, but it goes beyond that. When it comes to shoving, we tend to move into our own little divides and say, no, I have to stick with my own.
Right.
Why? I don't understand myself why I should stick with my own when I know my own, is not what Kenya is all about.
But could that be because of the leadership that we have? Because Kenyan politics is extremely divided along ethnic lines, and we also have ethnic leaders who have command a large, are very influential in the various communities. So in terms of leadership, maybe drawing lessons from your several peacekeeping missions, especially in West Africa, where you've spent a considerable amount of time, what can we learn in terms of the impact of bad governance?
But governance is one thing that really has caused a lot of countries in Africa to go backwards rather than move forward. And bad government, is not only in West Africa, it's not only in East Africa. It tends to divide, most of our countries, across the continent. But it can be eradicated. It can be dealt with decisively. Look at a country like Rwanda we have just seen. I've visited Rwanda twice myself. And since they had their terrible violence, you go to Rwanda today, Rwanda is on the way to being a great nation within reach of putting back or putting away, the problem of bad governance. If Rwanda can do it, why can't Kenya do it? Why can't Somalia do it? We can do it. It's a matter of, we together, leadership plus the people, saying enough is enough. We want to move forward. We want to move forward like our neighbor Rwanda, for example, in every way. Not only by word of mouth.
In every way. And you talk about leadership and the people, but how can we empower the people, give Kenyans that voice to contribute to peace building in the country?
I think Kenyans, do contribute, towards wanting, to have a better Kenya than what it is, maybe 10 years ago, right? But when it comes to moving ahead, that is where our problem is. And perhaps I agree with you that leadership that will lead this nation to what we hope will be a better Kenya is yet to emerge.
And I mean, this general election comes 10 years after the 2007 post-election violence. A lot of lessons yet to be learned by the country. But can we really move on without really solving what happened and the underlying causes of the 2007 post-election violence?
It's unfortunate that we have not addressed many of those issues that caused the post-electoral violence in the year 2007, decisively. We attempted to. We agreed when Kofi Annan put us together, or leadership together, that this is the way forward. We agreed that we are going to do A, B, C, D, but have we done it conclusively? I'm sorry, we have not. And here we are, months before the next election. I'm not a person who is pessimistic about what is going to happen in the next election. But I'm afraid that with the current tempo of things, the way I see things are going, there is every possibility that we might renege and go back to our bad system of killing one another or violence during elections. And that is the saddest thing that this country, must deal with decisively. Our leaders and our own people. We must say, violence is not going to make Kenya a great nation.
But I mean, the thing is, we've had leaders come out and say that across the political divide, we will not tolerate violence, we will ensure everything to ensure that there is peace in the country. But these same leaders also go out there and propagate violence, have issues of hate speech. We have the National Cohesion and Integration Commission constantly following up on such leaders. But let's talk about the bodies and institutions that we have mandated with ensuring peace in the country, NCAC being one of them. Are they doing it right where we are now?
You know, we have those organizations that should help us, you know, get
Ahead.
But you will always find that they don't do it right. Unfortunately, they don't do it right. They don't do it right either because they're afraid of, you know, sticking their necks out and saying, this is what it is. This is what we must do. You know, the last election, not the 207, the last election, I was involved with a number of Kenyans, prominent Kenyans, talking to both the political divide to try and convince our leaders that if this election, you know, comes through and you lose, you must not push your people to violence. We just managed to do that. When I say we, Kenyans, leaders together. And relatively well, you know, the election, you know, went. There were losers, there were winners, but the end of the day, there wasn't as much violence as it happened in the year 2007. Now, this particular one, which is coming, I have yet to see that commitment, you know, being taken.
We really are yet to see it because, case in point, the Busia ODM primaries very heated and contested, but we did see the different supporters, the different candidates rather, rally up their supporters. We've had the case of Paul Otoma telling the ODM Elections Board, if you do not give me that certificate, I'm going to storm your offices with my supporters. And, you know, these are issues that really could lead to a lot more polarization in the country. But then, 3 months the election, a lot of issues with regard to preparedness. Then where do we begin to ensure that we have crisis management?
I wonder, let's talk about crisis management, you know, a little later. But I wonder why leaders should move, you know, to the extent of telling their followers that I have to be the person to be there. And if I'm not going to be there, then we have to do ABCD, which is against the law. And there are laws that we have put, when, you know, which should be applied. Electoral laws, whether it is during the, you know, the national elections or whatever elections, you know, to see to it that people who are here to instigate violence, you know, are made to pay for their actions. Having said that, you know, for us, every now and then, to have fire brigades when election is taking place is something that also we should not be doing. You know, we should understand that elections are contests that will choose leaders for tomorrow, and not leaders who are going to stay there forever. So if those contests can be entered into without violence, this country will move forward.
Right. I mean, but we also have to keep in mind that elections also lead to disputes at the end of it. Now, in terms of dispute resolution, constitutionally, anybody who feels aggrieved should move to court and seek justice from the justice system. But we have those who say they do not trust the justice system, that their political rivals have an inner hand in the justice system, and that is why they resolve to take matters into their own hands. So in terms of dispute resolution, really, are we prepared for this election?
I hope so. I hope that we are prepared. And if we are prepared, then we must see to it that that's exactly what happens.
Right.
People should go to court and say, well, I wasn't satisfied with what happened. Present the facts. And let's have judges who will listen to such disputes and judge accordingly to what has been presented to them and sort, the mess for us. If we can't sort it ourselves, if the parties cannot sort, their own messes, amongst themselves amicably or fairly,
right,
then the courts must do it for them.
I mean, and just before we wind up, of course, some of the issues, the causes of post-election violence in this country are what we call historical injustices. We do have regions in the country that have spate of violence every 5 years, something that is election-related, political, something that is political at the same time. And, in the case of Rwanda, they have the Gashasha courts. They have a very integrated reconciliation process. In terms of reconciling those who suffer from historical injustices, what should Kenya do?
I think Kenya should learn from, Rwanda. There are lots of lessons that Kenya can learn from Rwanda. But many years ago, our own, people used to have ways and means by which they will resolve, disputes amongst tribes, amongst our people. What happened to those dispute resolution techniques?
The traditional ones.
The traditional ones that our own forefathers, and mothers, went through, or they sat underneath a tree, discussed the issues, and resolved the issues, and they never came back again. If Kenyans have now moved, a step ahead, whereby they don't believe in such, or they don't practice such, then we have to go the modern way.
Right.
And the modern way is the courts.
The court system. All right. Well, retired General Daniel Opande there exclusively on Worldview, discussing the cost of electoral violence and really what we can do as a country to ensure that the